Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, I was geeking out for this video over at the Trace. That's right, I go over to the Trace right there to read what's going on so that you don't have to. But of course, being the geek that I am, I started going down a bunch of rabbit holes. And lo and behold, I found a hit piece on the Bruen opinion, or at least what was supposed to be a hit piece, but it really kind of proved another point altogether. It is some very interesting discussion, and it does give us some data by which we might be able to make up our own minds about how good judges are and how good presidents have been at appointing judges, but it also is going to tell us something that's really ugly and unfortunately very true. You've known this has been going on for a long time, and the data now bears it out. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about, yes, they will disarm you solely for political reasons. Okay, hey, before we get going too far down the road, we're going down. Let's talk for a second about your trust in federal government. I know how much y'all trust the ATF. Do you guys trust the FBI? Ooh, how about the Secret Service? Do you trust the Secret Service? How about the CDC? How about the FDA? Well, they can't be trusted because it's pretty obvious to anyone who's paying attention that many of these government agencies and government in general has been turned against the American people. And in tough times like this, that's why we all need to band together. I want you to start paying attention to the good folks and everything they're doing over there at Black Forest Supplements, because right now their product, NMN, is making a huge difference in millions of Americans' lives. I've been taking it for 5 months, and let me tell you, I am already noticing the difference. Now, here's the thing. The FDA, well, they want to regulate this. They want to turn this into a prescription medicine. Why is that? Well, because then they can make billions and billions of dollars by monopolizing it. Furthermore, of course, if NMN and its production of NAD plus really is backed up by the science, as was done here on this Harvard study, well, then we're just going to start aging more gracefully, which means they're not going to be able to prescribe those billions and billions of prescription pills into our later years. Listen, NMN is responsible for energy production in over 37 trillion cells in your body and will help you regulate your weight, your cholesterol, and your blood pressure. Listen, the folks at Black Forest Supplements are willing to fight like hell to make sure that NMN remains an over-the-counter product. Why don't you do yourself a favor? Start aging a little bit more gracefully, start aging a little bit more healthy. And right now, here's the best part. Because if you get there in the next 48 hours and you buy 2 supplements, you are going to get a third one free. For more information, just go ahead and scan that QR code right there, or better yet, visit my good friends at blackforestsupplements.com/gun. Okay, so like I said, I'm over there weeding through the sewage that is the Trace. As we know, the Trace is a Bloomberg published journal, the very anti-gun, very anti-Second Amendment. But if you dig through all of the BS that's over there, you can actually pull data out of there, and sometimes you realize that they're actually doing us a favor by what they're talking about. This was meant to be a hit piece on the Bruen opinion. The premise behind it was going to be that, well, you know, now that we've injected history, and history is really subject to the beholder there, it's subject to interpretation, what we've done is we've created a system that's unworkable. And I do not agree with that assessment whatsoever. But what the injection of history has done is it has allowed courts who are hell-bent on upholding civilian disarmament legislation to continue to do so. So as much as we were all absolutely ecstatic when the Bruen opinion came out, we were all doing videos, myself included, saying this changes everything. It changes everything. Unfortunately, the Bruen opinion has not changed as much as we had hoped, especially when you're talking about the 7th, the 4th, the 2nd, or the 9th circuits. But the Trace did take a look at a couple of things. First of all, they took a look at 150 different lawsuits that were challenging the types of things that we talk about on this channel all the time. You know, assault weapon bans, magazine bans, pre-purchase licensings, and things like that. And here's what they found, and I think it's quite telling. Because if those suits were brought before a Republican-appointed judge, the plaintiff would prevail 48% of the time. And I was a little disappointed in that number that it was only 48%. But if you think that's low, check this out. Because if the same type of lawsuit was brought before a democratically appointed judge, there was only a 13% chance that the plaintiff would prevail. Which means you were 4 times as likely to prevail if you ended up before a Republican-appointed judge. Then the Trace decided to take a look at nearly 1,500 cases that involved people trying to get their convictions overturned or get their firearm rights restored because of Bruen. So this is a different issue that's now being reanalyzed under Bruen. What did they find there? Well, they found if you brought one of those issues before a democratically appointed judge, you had a 6% chance of winning. However, the article also did point out that about half of those opinions come from 2 judges alone in Illinois. But you think that's low? Check this out. Because if you brought that same issue before a Republican-appointed judge, you only had a 3% chance of winning. So while it would appear that GOP-appointed judges are far better at upholding challenges to otherwise unconstitutional legislation, they are not nearly as good as their Democratic counterparts when it comes to overturning convictions or restoring firearm rights, again based upon a reanalysis of Bruen. Now, of course, the article had to take the opportunity to talk about that absolute horrible renegade of a judge. Of course, that is Judge Benitez down in San Diego, and how the Bruen opinion allowed him to rule, shockingly, that assault weapon bans and magazine bans were in fact unconstitutional, forgetting the fact that Judge Benitez had ruled that way prior to Bruen in both instances. The only thing they got correct when referring to this whole hoopla down there in California was the following. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the nation's most liberal appeals court and least friendly to Second Amendment challenges, took the case, stayed Benitez's ruling, and is considering the state's appeal. That is the one truthful statement about that. But one of the things that I do tend to agree a little bit with the Trace is that, listen, if you've taken history classes, or if you've ever taken a similar history topic from different professors, you will know that history is definitely in the eyes of the beholder. And this has allowed courts that are politically motivated on either spectrum to play with the history and either uphold or strike down these laws. Now, you have a lot of other courts that are even more disingenuous. Seventh Circuit comes to mind, where they now suddenly, even though before they said the Second Amendment's in play, but the 2-part balancing test allows us to uphold this regulation, now they're just coming back and saying, well, upon further review, the Second Amendment's not even in play here. Now, here's another piece of data that came out of here, and I think this is really important because there's great debate. Is President Trump really a good Second Amendment president or a bad Second Amendment president? Those who think he's not particularly good on Second Amendment issues will routinely cite to the bump stock ban, which was ultimately overturned, but it was a playbook that has now been used by the Biden administration not once, not twice, but 4 separate times. Those on the other side, those that believe he is a good 2A president, will almost routinely point to his 3 Supreme Court justice appointees, which undoubtedly, at least 2 of the 3 have proven to be very pro-2A. I think the jury's still out on Justice Comey Barrett. What a piece of data I think that a lot of pro-Trump people, those who believe that he was a good Second Amendment, fail to point out, and I think this is valid, is that during the 4 years in office, during his first term, President Trump was able to appoint over 200 federal judges to the bench. And what we found is that on 29% of cases that were brought before a Trump-appointed judge, 29%, then you would actually prevail if you were the plaintiff that was challenging a gun control law. So almost 1 out of 3. And you sit there and you go, wow, I'm surprised that's considered to be a good number. That seems pretty low. I was a little surprised too. I thought it was a little low, but here's the thing. It's the second highest in American history. In fact, there's only one president whose judicial appointees have ruled more frequently in favor of Second Amendment issues, and that is President George W. Bush, whose appointees have ruled in favor of Second Amendment issues 48% of the time, or nearly twice as frequently as what President Trump's appointees have. But what the data all points out is the thing that you guys all know already. None of this is about saving lives. None of this is about making communities safer. No, this is about one thing and one thing only. It's politics. And what's politics all about? It's about control and it's about money. And that's exactly what's going on. And your inalienable Second Amendment rights, as well as many other inalienable rights, well, they're just the pawns in the chess game right now, aren't they? Listen, we're going to go ahead and link the story up down below so that you guys can geek out on it for yourself. I think there's some really interesting data to be pulled from this. If you got any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. But if you don't, that's okay. That information's down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, we want to hear about it, go ahead and click on that link right there and let us know. Might be better than any idea we come up with anytime soon. If all you wanted to do was subscribe to our monthly newsletter, the ability to do all of that is down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's remember, the part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.